Upon request, I can also perform a hug.
You know, I've been exhibiting signs of sadness. Could I get one of those?
No.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is...
Morning somewhere!
For September 16th, 1947. My name is Bernie Burns. Sitting right over there, she will perform a hug, if you ask very nicely. It's how she burns everybody.
You're going to need to submit a form in triplicate by the deadline.
September 16th, 2024, by the way. I lost myself in the way that I pronounced September. I'm not sure. I can't even repeat how I pronounced it that way. Anyway, hey, everybody. It is Monday. That's the September pronunciation you get on this lovely Monday. So, Ashley, this weekend, I did a little Patreon discussion.
Yes.
I talked about what is currently my favorite show on what we'll call television is Severance. I really enjoyed the first season of that show. You've probably heard me talk about it before. For the Patreon this weekend, I did a little watch-along for episode 1 of season 1 of Severance. I thought about doing the last episode of the first season, but then that felt like 8 episodes of homework for everybody else, so I was like, I'll just do the first. It'll hook you. If you like it, it'll get you.
I get you. The last episode would be a good choice leading into the next season of the show, which is coming out in January. But like you said, and it's such a good episode too. Oh my God. It ties just a lot of like really good elements of the show together in a very satisfying way. So the last episode would be a good choice, but I agree with you. It feels a lot like homework. So this way you can hook them in, Bernie, with the siren song of Severance.
Yeah, because it's coming next January. It'll be 3 years since that show came out.
Such a long gap.
What is going on? Can I just say for a second? Ashley, you know the Emmys were this weekend, right?
Yes.
Talk about that in a second. So the Emmys to me are starting to feel like this is my backlog awards, right?
Right.
I've seen none of the hosts should just get up and go, you've seen none of these shows. You probably have heard about a couple of them because a friend of yours said in passing, oh, that's really good. You should watch that. Because right now I'm watching stuff from like a year ago, 2 years ago, in TV. I'm up to date on movies, I feel like, but TV is basically then everything that doesn't go to a movie theater at this point. And even that boundary gets crossed sometimes. And it's like, I didn't want people to have to go watch season 1 of Severance because it's like, I recognize if you haven't watched it in the last 3 years, you're probably not going to go watch it. So here's a chance to like watch the first episode and see if it's for you.
Well, that's kind of too what you can do it with this like Severance watch along, or it's also how you can look at things like the Emmys now is a chance for shows to break through the backlog, right? It's a chance for like, all right, this one's got to move. Like I need to move this one to the top. We keep saying things like, I need to watch The Bear.
And
Everyone
Shogun.
says great things about Shogun. We've been saying that since the last Emmys, which were also earlier this year, where The Bear and Shogun won a ton of awards.
Why were there 2 Emmys this year?
They were in January. They got moved because of strike.
Oh, that's right.
They got moved to. So last year's Emmys got moved to January. So we get 2 Emmys this year.
So they're like,
2 chances to be
again
frustrated
up here. Well, there's been no new seasons of any shows since then. So it's
every 3 years.
It's been less than a year.
I mean, I guess maybe that's an upside. Like the way the TV model used to work is you would have a
story time with Ashley. She's going to tell you, you young people. She's going to tell you about the before times.
The before times. You would have a 20 episode season.
Yep.
Where every
22.
episode is 40 minutes, and they would come out like clockwork every year. You knew that this show was going to start in April or whatever, and it was going to go for the next 6 months. And then the second they had their finale, their like twin show would come on and take up the other 6 months. So there's always a thing to watch. But they managed to make these incredibly long, by runtime seasons of shows on an incredibly regular schedule. And now it's like we got 3-year gaps between a 6 to 8 episode season. The way TV is getting made has clearly changed a lot. And you'd think that would mean that we could make it through the backlog because there are fewer episodes of the things to watch. But somehow that's not happening because there are so many more things to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that. Like, you take a show like Friends, for instance. Every season of Friends, they had 22 episodes of the show. I mean, they weren't 40 minutes like you're saying. They were half-hour shows. So
well, you weren't watching Gay Vampire High. I was.
Right. Gay Vampire High, they can get another 20 minutes out of it because it's drama. Usually dramas were longer. Not sure why that's the case.
Oh, well, in this case, in that show's case, it's usually watching some like stacked vampires like stalking along a street looking like they mean trouble.
That was like...
That's easy 20 minutes.
That wasn't drama. That was drama. Yeah, but Friends would come out, and it would come out every single year. In the fall, the new season would start. Right, that's the way television,
Right,
broadcast
like fall
television works.
premiere season was a thing.
But it sounds like they were a year apart. They're not. They were like 4 months apart because there would be like a mid-season break where they'd have some reruns of the show. The show was on at the same time all year long, same night of the week, same time, unless there was some special or something like that. And the show ran for 22 episodes for the season out of 52 weeks in the year. So really, you were like maybe 6 months between a full new season of the show. And to be honest, because not everything was on demand, you would miss some things. So you'd pick something up during the reruns or something like that. It's just like, and now it's like 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. You know what I mean? It's like, what was the first show you remember starting these huge gaps?
Well, Stranger. It's a split. So maybe Game of Thrones, because they split the last season into two seasons.
I go all the way back to like Battlestar Galactica, Sopranos.
Oh, yeah,
they would just go forever between seasons, and just like it was the horse armor of TV. It's like people figured out that people have patience for this, so let's just do this as much as we want.
Well, I think again the way that we consume TV has also changed. There was a time where you would have there's like this many networks, right? And so you have X many channels, and they run linearly, and so once their schedule is filled up, that's it. You don't make more stuff.
No,
and
that's
now,
it. Yeah.
Now it's not just like this one pipe. It's just like it's a dump truck, right? You just as much as you can possibly fit in the internet, it can take. And so, so many different things are getting made. So we're getting a lot more variety of stuff, I feel. And we're getting like all kinds of different things for different audiences. And that's fantastic. It's really awesome. But it can be hard to focus.
It can also, you're just not going to be watching the same things as anyone else. You're just not going to be. Like, you might get maybe 10% of your friends who have seen the shows that you've seen, and you can talk to them about or whatever. It's why another like explosion of content is podcasts. There's podcasts about one thing. It's about this show. And if you don't watch this show or read this author, there's no point in you listening to the podcast otherwise. You know what I mean?
Right. But you can go deep though, because like that's a thing that couldn't have existed or existed well in sort of like the old model of distribution. And now it can.
Am I crazy too? This Emmys they had last night, it just, were they like celebrating like Nepo stuff? It all seemed like you were saying like the theme was like all father-son stuff.
Yeah,
the hosts
so the hosts were Eugene and Dan Levy. So father son, real life, also played father and son in Schitt's Creek. And then
By the way, haven't seen it. It's in my backlog. Everyone says it's amazing.
I've started it a couple times, but I keep being stubborn and staying on season 1. Like I'm going to get through season 1 before I get to apparently where it gets great at season 2.
I have a friend
so I'm
whose
being stubborn about
opinion
that.
I value greatly, and he told me, he goes, you probably won't like it because they do that thing where they get a bit and they feel like they're leaning into the bit the whole time, and like there also is this weird feeling that they're about to break at any point in time. He goes, and I know you hate that kind of stuff. And I said, I do hate that. Thank you very much. I won't out my friend who told me that, but they gave me an honest review of it, saying maybe push this one further down in the backlog.
Things can be good and not for you. That is entirely possible. But so they hosted, and a lot of the presenters were also like sort of on-screen father-son, or like like familial kind of dynamics is like what the theme they went for in their presenters this year. So there was a lot of that, and of course also taking cracks at the Bear for all of its comedy nominations.
Yeah, I heard people were upset because The Bear was nominated in comedy categories, although it's not a pure comedy.
Right. Well,
it's not a laugh 'em up.
The Bear is seems to be one of those shows, and again, this is going off like hearsay and what people seem to be saying since, again, in the backlog, but that they're like, if this is a comedy, it's very dark.
Yeah.
It's like one of those shows that is like a drama with some levity where like you get people just like fighting and grousing at each other, and it can be very funny, but the show itself is not funny. But it's nominated in comedy categories. So like Jeremy Allen White won Best Actor in a Comedy, where there's like, the What We Do in the Shadows guys, and the like Only Murders in the Buildings guys who are sitting there going, you're not a comedy.
Right.
And I believe this specifically, it was the mother of a supporting actress nominee who was like, fuck the Bear.
Really?
For when her daughter,
Mom going to bat,
who was nominated for Hacks, which is another show that won quite a lot of awards, and apparently another show that we need to watch. She lost out to the Bear.
Briefly, tell me about Hacks, because that's the whole purpose of these awards, to find out about new stuff. So Hacks, is a new show. Let me guess. Is it HAX or HACKS?
It's HACKS.
So are these people who are like hackers and they're
No.
breaking into?
No, so it's specifically there's like a comedian whose like routine has aged, and they end up bringing in like a new young comedy writer who's had a problem with, I don't know, inadvisable tweets or something like that, and so they
How modern.
and so there's like a mentorship sort of, and they learn from each other, but it's a comedy series, and it's been doing really well. This is its third season, by the way.
And
so if we do watch it, we have a lot of catching up to do.
Do we know who's in this? Like any big stars in the show? Because now big stars are in these series as well.
Right.
Know?
Oh, Jodie Foster actually just won her first Emmy last night.
Jodie Foster has never won. I guess why would she
I
win
know,
an Emmy?
right?
There was a point in time when
You'd think that you'd assume she's just won everything, but she just won her first Emmy for I think it's True Detective. She was
that
in
makes sense, yeah.
Night County or Night Country or whatever it is. So she just won her very first Emmy, which is wild to me.
Yeah. Well, there was a long time when people who were movie stars, we talked about this with the Kevin Costner thing, they weren't in TV. TV was a lesser format,
Right. It's like, I'm not going to slim it on TV. And then they got prestige TV, and occasionally they'd go, well, all right then.
I do
And then
lo-
now I feel like they've bled a lot, a lot across.
It does. It's really weird too, because it's like I do love these incredibly epic TV series they're making now, and it's been a glut. Like for all my friends who worked in production too, it was like an amazing 10 years. But at the end of it all, as a consumer, it's just too much.
It's
right?
just too much.
It's just too much. That's the only way you can describe it. It's just too much stuff. Can I make, by the way, since we're talk about some current event stuff here, can I make a really acknowledging that this is a weird segue? Like I'm going to make a weird segue here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jodie Foster just won her first Emmy. In current events, President Trump, there was another assassination attempt on him, former President Trump, while he was golfing. Let me show you how these dots connect.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
So the guy that tried to assassinate him, they did catch the guy apparently, and they caught him alive, and he is in custody, which means they're going to be able to interrogate him. And the last time I could remember someone who made an assassination attempt and was captured alive was John Hinckley, who shot Reagan in the 80s. And one of the motivations that was said why he shot President Reagan was to impress the very young actress from Taxi Driver, Jodie Foster. So
Well, that was an involved but actually amazingly relevant segue.
I almost hate to bring it up because when I hear Jodie Foster's name, it's like the first fact that pops in my brain. It's because I was alive during that time. And the fact that this guy was trying to, what a weird thing to have attached to you without
Without you actually having done
Right.
anything.
I'm just sitting here, you know what I mean? And this whole thing, like this big national emergency is like suddenly my name is thrown in the mix. How weird would that be for her, So I kind of am remiss to bring it up, but it is interesting timing that there was an attempted assassination, second one now.
In what, like 2 months?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so this one, the details are still limited. I suspect we'll be learning a lot about it this week. And I'll also say there are probably a lot more current events news sources that you can get all of the nitty-gritty from. But what I understand is that Trump was golfing. His security detail identified a gun muzzle in a shrub like 400 yards away, which I don't even know how that's
they must
possible.
be on
but
alert, man.
very high alert.
Yeah.
They fired a couple shots. And then
What you say they mean
the security detail.
Okay.
The would-be assassin left all his stuff, ran for it, got in a car and drove away. And then that car was picked up like next county over or
So
something.
did
like
he? The reports were really sketchy at the beginning because I think there was like this minimum disclosure thing going on where they just said that Trump was nearby where guns were fired. So did the assassin attempt to fire? I'm not looking into his like attempt as being like less than. If he's there with a gun in a bush, he's attempting to assassinate a presidential candidate at that point in time
I don't know that any shots were actually fired.
by him.
Correct.
But so they got to him beforehand. Well, good. That's their job. They're supposed to do that. That's great.
Yes, as opposed to like watching some dude on a roof for 20 minutes going,
Right.
is he doing?
Right. Well, I'm
yes.
just glad that everyone is safe. I'm glad. It doesn't sound like anybody was injured even in this one. So I'm glad everything turned out okay there.
Yes, and so the suspect, Ryan Ruth, 58, who lived in North Carolina most of his life. We don't know a lot, but people are gonna be pouring over like his tweets and like every social media
Everything.
post he's ever made. So
his interviews, he's going to be interrogated. They're going to be able to find out his motivations for doing this. So this will be this will be an interesting time in our already incredibly interesting times.
Yeah,
with
so
this guy.
and it's going to be a very crazy week.
Being able to speak for himself. All right. Well, I don't know how to make that into something for a sunny morning show. So can I do another bizarre segue?
Please do.
So this all happened on a golf course.
Okay.
What's on a golf course? Gophers.
Okay.
Everyone's making fun of the SpaceX astronaut for his spacewalk. Now, when I say spacewalk, Ashley, changing gears here,
Yeah, okay.
what is a spacewalk? Like, what in your head? What's happening?
Okay, in my head, what's happening on a spacewalk is someone has got like their mag boots, or they've got or they got like a carabiner that hooks into clips, and they're out on the whole of their spaceship.
When you say out, what does out mean?
They're outside the
Just
spaceship.
walking around.
They're on the outside of the spaceship in their like spacesuit. They're walking around, and then oh no, the debris is coming. They've been knocked over, and now they're sliding along trying to grab at rivets. And then finally, just before the end, they finally grab one and they twist to the side, and they're like, stopped.
Made it. Okay, that's not what happened here. So people are making fun of the billionaire
Spacewalks are very dramatic.
spacewalker who, what they did was they basically opened a hatch. Here, I'll show you a video of it here, okay?
Okay.
This is it. This is not the beginning of it. This is the spacewalk. So he's like coming out the top of the capsule, and he's like waist high. Like his bottom half of his body is still in the capsule. The differentiation here between just being in the capsule is they have depressurized it, and he is basically surviving in space in his spacesuit. But people are saying he kind of gopher holed it, like he like popped up, or like a prairie dog, like he popped up out of this thing, and people were kind of ridiculing it. But all the space enthusiasts are saying, no, this is a very big deal. They're testing the spacesuit. He is living in the pressurized environment of the spacesuit. Whether or not he like jumps out and jetpacks around for your enjoyment, that doesn't matter. The science is still there, and he did the spacewalk.
Right. So they're doing the job of the spacewalk, which in this case is to test the suits in the vacuum of space.
I'm learning, yes, all this after the fact.
So
yes.
even if he's not running dramatically from debris, he is still in the suit outside the ship itself, outside of the safety of pressure, and going, yes, the suit works.
In the worst environment that we know of, essentially.
Yeah.
The most inhospitable environment that humans have ever encountered, this guy's in the middle of.
Right. Like, look, I get it. It would be very badass to like get up on the hole and do some jumping jacks. But I also understand that like when you're confronting the absolute void of space, you can go like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, that's it. I would listen. That's the line I'm drawing here, right? If I was doing this, I would call it a spacewalk. I would come back going, no, bitch, I totally fucking spacewalk.
I would be inside catching up on my backlog, okay?
You would be?
Absolutely.
I would be drawing lines in the sand. Like, this counts as a spacewalk. And then I would also say, in that category, while I'm drawing lines for myself personally, this amount of nacho cheese is a respectable, correct amount of nacho cheese. This is the episode of Weird Segues here.
You are, of course, just referring to the gas station attendant who attacked a customer with a bat for taking too much nacho cheese.
Sorry, it's not funny because someone who was attacked with a bat.
Well,
the nacho cheese really does like challenge your "it's not funny" though part of that story.
It can be funny because the victim survived.
Oh, did he?
Yes, the victim's alive, although not in great condition, but yes, alive. So this is the headline. This is from WLBT3 on your side in Las Vegas.
Is this that's got to be the headline though, because there's got to be more to the story than just the person took too much nacho cheese.
Headline is gas station worker accused of beating customer with bat for taking too much nacho cheese. Further in the article, it sounds like specifically the customer was like talking some shit. And so the employee told the customer to, get the fuck out of the store. And the customer insisted that he needed nachos. And so went and was like putting like too much nacho cheese onto the nachos.
What is too much?
So
I need to know for my own personal information. I need to know because clearly this is a bat-worthy offense.
Well, the employee told the police that the victim broke the cheese machine, so maybe that's too much.
Oh, that's too much. Yeah, like too much for me would be like if you take the top off of the nacho cheese machine and you start scooping with your hands. Clearly, that's too much. If you
dive in and start doing the backstroke, yeah, too much nacho cheese. But
this is just we're establishing boundaries now as a civilization. Like, what's too much? I need to know. I'm way more likely to be in this scenario than I am with the billionaire spacewalk. Right.
Right.
This is much more my speed. Yeah. Yes. You should know this about me. If I'm in Vegas and I'm assuming this was the middle of the night, and I encounter some quantity of nacho cheese, it's entirely possible I might take too much of that.
And this is the moment the bat comes
By
out.
someone else's standard.
Just assume that you need to stop, okay?
Or you double down and then you're like slippery with cheese and they can't nab you. So this guy's okay. He lived through this nacho cheese and bat encounter.
Yes, like I said, not well. According to the article, the victim has 2 brain bleeds, multiple skull fractures, blood in his ears, air in his brain, and multiple facial fractures, but is alive.
And very high sodium. I'm sorry.
And the employee sprained a wrist
Well, yeah, that could be
from wielding the bat. So who's the real victim here?
I gotta say this though too. It's like he hurt himself. Like that's one of the things they can use to identify someone who's an assailant in something is because you just attacking someone else, you can hurt yourself, right? And
Not if you stretch first.
it's so fucking crazy to me. Like you hear stories about somebody getting punched out on like 6th Street or something in Austin. They fall over, they hit their head the wrong way, they die.
Right. And it's
a
like,
guy-
that's it. It's like lights out because they just like fell slightly wrong. And like, what are the odds? And this person took an insane beating from a bat and is still kicking.
And ate an entire tub of nacho cheese as well. Though none of those situations are good for you. And is somehow survived all that.
Well, perhaps the real tragedy is we don't know how much of the nacho cheese he actually got to eat.
This is what we want to figure out, Ashley. What's the boundary? Like now we know that there is too much nacho cheese. There's a quantity that can lead to violence. I want to know what that amount is.
I think that once you have more cheese than nacho, you need to slow down. You need to start asking yourself
You're
questions.
insane. What?
Yeah.
You're
If-
saying
if
when the
there's
balance
a-
gets over 50%?
If there's more cheese mass than nacho mass, what are you even going to do? You can't even scoop it at that point. There's
Dude.
too much. It's too much.
You have just created a horrible situation because that's like everybody at a baseball game has that amount of nacho cheese. And by the way, there's bats all over at a baseball game. That's a really dangerous scenario. That's a really scary line you just drew in the sand.
Do they let you pump your own nacho cheese at a baseball game?
I mean, if you tip them, maybe they will. You give them a little wink and they lean on it a little bit more for you.
All right. Well, look, we can all let's just all keep our bats to ourselves.
What is nacho?
Can we agree?
You're the person who likes to experiment in the kitchen. What is nacho cheese?
Look, nacho cheese. I wish we could
if you had to make it from scratch.
You start it with Velveeta. Not proper nacho cheese requires a Velveeta base.
You know how expensive Velveeta is? That is not Velveeta.
Maybe that's why the bat came out.
Oh, because you had to use the Velveeta that
Do you
day?
know what the budget is?
Well, look, we haven't reached the soft landing of inflation yet. This Velveeta is breaking the bank here. It was kind of like he was robbing the place, honestly. if you think
Right.
about
Well,
it.
they were like, this is my food intake for the day. Is this cheese?
No, it's not Velveeta. Velveeta is like, if you live outside of the U.S., you probably don't even know what Velveeta is. It's like, Velveeta is a cheese. It's like a solid under protest. They have to put it in a cardboard box. And
It's like
even the cheese,
compressed into a log.
right? It is. It almost looks like something you'd use to start a fire, like one of those compressed logs.
like slice bits off and then like put the rest back in the box.
Well, it doesn't hold its own structural integrity because it comes in like that weird, super stiff tin foil as well. That's only on Velveeta.
By the way, this is making nacho cheese sound absolutely horrendous.
And then you take that and you mix it with what?
You're gonna mix it with some like nice spicy peppers.
Really? I don't.
You're not?
There's no vegetables in a nacho cheese. That comes after.
Jalapeno.
I think they're
how
putting
much
jalapeno juice in. Is what like the brine.
so?
There's not in nacho cheese at a gas station in Las Vegas. There is not a single
Well, I was
ounce
thinking of like
vegetable in
making
that.
good stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I want to know what is the stuff that looks like it came out of a steel 55-gallon drum. I want to know what that stuff is made.
You mean the
of.
kind of stuff that they have to describe as like a cheesy flavored sauce because they can't actually call it cheese because it's
Exactly.
never met cheese?
Like in the 50s, this came down. It was in a meteor, and it just keeps reproducing, and so they have to find a way to like get rid of it. So they just put it in giant cans and sell it to people in gas stations.
All right, look, we need to hear from everybody. What is the proper ratio of nacho cheese to nacho, and what's going to get you the bat? All right, please weigh in the comments. And before we go, I'd like to thank today's sponsors, Matthew Ulwich and Ryan Hammonds. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere. Extra nacho cheese for you both today.
Thank you both for being our space gophers today. We appreciate your contributions to science. All right, well, that does it for us today, September 16th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.